12 people dead there. Um, anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism, God's people, right? Part of the promised plan of God. The seed that produced Jesus, the people that will be redeemed in the end times, are being massacred and hated and loathed. I mean, it's biblical. It's absolutely biblical. What about this violence, though? Peace, we think, well, peace on earth, that somehow peace is just the end of violence. But the connection between peace and violence is a little deeper than that. It says in Romans 5:1, it talks about peace for individuals. It says, having been justified by faith, we have peace with God, right? We've ended the rebellion. We've been justified. We're no longer shaking our fist at God saying we're doing it our way. We've surrendered. Peace comes by surrender. So as an individual peace, but I think in the plan of salvation for individuals, what about peace for God's plan of redemption for the whole world? And I think this absence of peace in the world means what? The world, or the people of the world, have a broken relationship with God. There's always a relationship, right? It's not like you don't have a relationship. He is Lord and Master and Creator, and we are something else. We are subject and created creature. So there's always a relationship, but that relationship is poisoned with the Creator God. And how that plays out is that in the life of the world, in our institutions, in our culture, in our society, we rebel as rebels against God's order. We do things that are opposed to what God would say is right and good. We want to do things our way. And we know that as individuals, I try and say this a lot, when we go against God's order, there are always consequences, right? David, King David, a man after God's own heart, he sinned with Bathsheba, he sinned with murder and adultery. He suffered consequences on earth. His family fell apart. His sons rebelled against him. His baby son was taken, his life taken away from him. There are consequences for individuals. Well, what about the world? I think the world has consequences too, whether it's a nation, a society, a civilization. I think we've gone against God's order. We reject God's rule. We want to do things our way, but there's tension in that. When you go against God's order, there's tension. I think that's where the violence comes in. Violence is a natural expression or consequence of rebellion against God. There must be violence for us to get our way. That violence does what? It creates chaos, right? God created everything good in its order. Violence undoes order and creates chaos. So it's a direct rebellion against God. Violence creates chaos. Violence is also, think about it, idolatry, right? Because we believe when we have this violence that human power is going to change things about people. Things will get better if we just get violent and overthrow the existing order. So we're challenging God's sovereignty. We will be sovereign over this earth. We will be sovereign over other people. That's idolatry. We're trusting in the power of man in violence. But the Bible also tells us that violence is met with judgment. God constantly confronts violence and declares justice, that he will make things right. And justice, when it's executed, exposes what? The futility of violence. You will be judged. And finally, this idea of peace on earth, we know that it's only going to be accomplished in the end times. That the final peace, the defeat of all those who would raise their fists in violence and violate God's order, they will be subdued, they will be eliminated. Only then, when Christ returns, will we have God's kingdom. And what comes with that? Shalom, peace, God's peace. No more death, no suffering, no pain, life existing in God's order with God's presence, living in God's power. So violence today is beyond the absence of peace. It's a violation of God's order. So we look to Christmas. What are we looking for? We're looking to Christmas to be what? The sign that God gave us that He's got to do something about the violence. He's got to do something. And He sends His Son into the world to show us that there is redemption, there is salvation, there will be new creation, and it begins in the cradle. So as we approach Christmas, let's remember our place in the plan of God and trust in the promised plan of God. So welcome.